Thick as me.
You okay, Clinton?
Karma. Went down the wrong way.
Water that bad?
Went down the wrong pipe.
Sure. They're right here. They're for everyone.
Do a CI.
No, they're for everyone. Yeah, absolutely.
Fever coming on.
I got a phone my emergency. You're my emergency contact. Make sure you don't get that Zoom here.
We're live.
No. Yeah.
Still alive.
Okay, good afternoon. I would like to call our meeting to order. All right, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Tina, if you could please call the roll.
Mayor Young.
Present.
Vice Mayor Wilcox.
Present.
Commissioner Greenlee.
Present.
Commissioner Murphy.
Present.
Commissioner Slattery.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We will now have Mr. Mark Westhoff, our city manager, approach the podium. I will now open our public hearing. And again, this public hearing is with the intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate of 2026. Mr. Westhoff will begin with his presentation, and then after which, if there are any comments, we will handle those at that time. But at this point, we're going to have Mr. Westhoff. Go ahead, sir.
This is the same presentation that I made last week. I'm going to make it again for those present as well as anyone who missed last week. We'll be talking about the overall budget, which is kind of the second part of the proceedings tonight, but it obviously impacts the mill levy and the revenue neutral rate, which is this first part. So I'm going to put all the information out there so that then it can be discussed. Quick summary of the process for budgeting and taxes for local entities, municipalities, counties, school districts in the state of Kansas. On July 20th was the deadline for cities, like I said, those taxing entities, to inform the county clerk if they intend to exceed the revenue neutral rate, which means to raise property tax revenue for the next year, and to set a mill levy ceiling for their budget process. Once that ceiling is set, they cannot exceed that in their final budget, which we're looking at today. Just a note, the ceiling number is the number that went out in the flyer to everyone. So that's not the final tax number for any of the entities. That is the maximum ceiling that they set for themselves that they cannot exceed in their budgeting process. In June, July, and August for the city, the department heads presented and discussed their requested budgets to me and to our finance director, and we had our initial discussions internally about those. We made some revisions to those. And then we held 5 budget workshops with the city commission and the department heads to go through each budget line, make decisions about salaries, operations, projects, and equipment. Our goal was to craft a reasonable budget that balances increasing costs without a larger tax burden increase on city residents. On August 14th, the city published the proposed budget as of that date in the Atchison Globe. And just a note, the budget that we are proposing today is lower than even what was proposed in the Globe, and that was lower than that ceiling number that was put out in July. On September 2nd, I presented the final proposed budget, which we'll be also looking at today, to the city commission and to the public so that it would be out in the public for a week before this hearing. And then today is our revenue neutral rate public hearing, our budget proposal public hearing, setting the mill levy, and adoption of the budget. The final deadline for all of these things is September 20th. Due to schedules of the commissioners, we set that hearing for today. Next slide. Little summary on property taxes in general. Residential property taxes are calculated using three main variables. The first is the appraised value of a property, which is completed by the county appraiser using formulas that include condition, location, and comparative sales to basically try to come up with the market rate of that property. That is then multiplied by the state assessment rate, which is set by the state legislature. For Kansas residential, it's 11.5%. It's higher for commercial. The total of that calculation is called the assessed value. The assessed value is the amount of a property that is actually taxable. So it's less than the total value of the property. Then that assessed value is multiplied by the mill levy from each local taxing entity to come up with the total property tax owed for that property. A mill is equal to $1 of property tax for every $1,000 of assessed value. I have an example at the bottom to kind of look at maybe a median priced home in the city of Atchison, how much of that comes to the city. And we'll go through that pie chart on that page in more detail later. Next slide. So that concept of a mill can be a little confusing to understand, especially when you're looking at cities, counties, and school districts, so it varies, the value of that mill varies depending on which taxing entity you're talking about. Some years, keeping the same mill levy as the previous year, which seems like you didn't raise taxes, will actually result in higher tax revenue if the overall appraised value of the entire taxing district went up. In 2021, the Kansas State Legislature created the revenue neutral rate. The intention of this is to provide cities, counties, school districts, and other taxing entities with the mill levy number that would allow them to collect the exact same property tax revenue as the year before. It's most of the time lower than the year before because appraised values have been going up. If they intend to set their mill levy over that revenue neutral rate and collect more taxes than the previous year, they must hold a public hearing, which is what we're doing here today. Next slide. So based on that process within the city, the proposed 2026 budget, which we'll go through in a little more detail, for the city of Atchison and the Atchison Public Library, which is included in our mill levy, but we don't have full control over their budget. They set their mill levy and then we can reduce it slightly if we need to get in line with certain things, but we can't, just slash the library budget completely. That combined rate in the proposed budget is 46.358, which is 1.493 mils over the revenue neutral rate for this year, which equates to a 2.5% increase in tax revenue from 2025 to 2026. I have a chart there showing the cities and the libraries combined property tax revenue and the percent change from the previous year for the last 6 years. With the proposed budget this year, the average would be 2.21% per year. You'll note there are 2 years in the last 6 where the city has been revenue neutral. In 2022, and then in 2024, we actually cut 4%. Next slide. So how does the city compare? And why, if the city is at 2.2%, why have taxes gone up more than that for most people every year of those 6 years? It's because the city is only one part of the residents' tax bill. This is a look at the comparative percentages for a resident of Atchison that's not in any kind of special district for the last 4 years, and then we'll look at this current year. In 2020, which was taxes collected in 2021, the city accounted for about 30% of a resident's tax bill. The county was 31%, the school district was 32%. Those were the three largest. Over the last 4 years, the city's Share of that has fallen, and we'll talk about why. You could go to the next slide. Look at the most recent year, where the city is now 25% of a resident's property tax bill. The school district is 33%, and the county is 34%. One note about this chart, this year, in 2026, the orange slice is gone. The state left or got rid of their mill levy, so that orange slice is no longer part of next year's, or what we're talking about here today. The other taxing entities impacting city residents have been increasing taxes more than the city of Atchison over that time span. And it looks like this will continue into 2026. So next slide to show that. This is another way to view that. The red chart is the county, the blue chart is the school district, and the green chart is the city. These are the mill levies. This is showing that over the last 6 years, the last line is the proposed as of date. I don't know this. The county and the school district are not finalized. We are not finalized, so they could go lower than what they have published so far. But as you can see, over time, as appraised values have gone up, the city's mill levy has fallen, and the other two have stayed more steady, thereby actually increasing the revenue that they collect. Next slide. All right, so then on to the proposed budget for the year. These are a couple highlights of the proposed budget for the city of Atchison for 2026. After conducting a wage survey of the area, Northeast Kansas, to compare the wages for city employees to equivalent jobs in private industry as well as other public entities, department heads with city commission came to the idea of a 3% plus $1 merit increase for next year. Merit increase meaning that it will be up to the department heads to decide who gets that, when they get it, how much of it they get. But we budget that much so that everyone is eligible for a full merit increase should they earn it. And that's for every employee except the city manager. The $1 side of that equation was put in place so that the lower wage employees receive a slightly higher bump than the upper level, higher wage earners, so that they can come in line a little bit more. Just a note on that, based on the wage survey we completed, even with that increase, city employees are still below those equivalents in private industry, which is a goal of ours. We believe we provide good benefits, a really solid employment, but we want to stay slightly below private industry so we're not competing with them directly. And people want to work for the city for the mission of working for the city versus, maybe making a little more money in private industry. A couple other notes, we needed to switch to contract work for our engineering department and our planning. This is necessary due to some staffing limitations. We've had the city engineer open for a number of years now and have not had any applicants for it. The engineering work continues, so we went out for bid last year and we have a relationship with a contractor at this point. They're doing a great job, but that's one change. Another is our building inspector and zoning administrator is retiring this year. We believe we have the work for a full-time building inspector, but probably not for a full-time planner. And so we're looking at going out to bid for consultant for planning services. Included in the budget is a new city website and some technology upgrades. The website upgrade is required by ADA and State of Kansas regulations that are changing next year. The tech upgrades are intended to increase efficiency, cybersecurity, and those are covered by the remaining ARPA funds so they don't impact the tax levy. We've included in the CIP for next year our general obligation road bond that takes place every 3 years. Talk about that in a minute as well. And then we went through, upon direction of the City Commission from those budget workshops, and we cut a number of equipment purchases and some operations lines for 2026 to bring the budget, like we talked about, into a reasonable range. Even with those cuts and even with what we'll look at coming up, we're still able to make over $10 million in investments in infrastructure and upgrades in the city for next year in the current budget. How is that possible? Well, expenses are only half of the equation for the budget. Next slide. The other half is revenue. The city does collect property taxes. There are 3 funds that go into the calculation to determine how much property tax we will collect each year. Those are the general fund, the debt service fund, and the library, which I talked about we have some control over but not complete control. Those funds in the 2026 budget total $13,757,132. But we are only proposing $5,042,000 in property taxes to cover those expenses. That means 2/3 of those tax levied funds are covered by other revenue. And if you look at the entire city budget with the non-taxable funds as well, it's closer to 3/4 of our expenses are covered by other revenue. That other revenue includes state and federal grants and other programs that we take part in, interest on our investments, sales taxes, franchise, special, and bed taxes that are collected by the state and distributed to us, utility fees, assessments, permits, and fines, and then fund balances, the CIP balance and the ERP balance, which all account for savings that we've made in the past for future projects. And then, like I mentioned, the ARPA funds, which this is the 2026 will be the final year for those. We need to zero out those funds or we have to give them back to the feds. All right. Wanted to do a quick case study on expenses and the revenue options to cover those expenses. The thing we hear about the most, one of the most visible aspects of the city, which is our streets. The 2025 expenses for projects, so non-salary and operations for the streets department, is $445,000 for debt payments for our past general obligation bonds, which are used to fund larger projects within the city every 3 years. Between $250,000 and $300,000 in CIP for one-time projects that year that are not covered by those bonds. $500,000 for KDOT projects for the various highways that run through city limits, totaling approximately $1.2 million. The non-property tax revenue that goes into that equation, we receive $280,000 from the state highway fuel tax, and we receive a $400,000 grant for those KDOT projects that run through city limits every year. So the total other revenue is around $680,000, which means that we need to collect around $520,000 from property taxes to fund the streets department. And just a note, we've talked about brick streets a lot. Those projects typically cost up to 10 times as much as asphalt projects of the same size. Next slide. The current model that we use to fund the streets department and those projects is a general obligation bond model. That means that every 3 years, we pass a general obligation bond, we take out a chunk of money, we do large-scale projects that hopefully will last 3 years until the next round is needed, and then we don't do any larger scale projects for the next 2 years. Some pros of that model. Cities receive a preferred interest rate on those bonds, which is often lower than inflation. So dollars spent today on those projects, even though we're paying it off over the long term, are considered a good investment. Cons of that model: the larger projects are only completed every 3 years, which makes planning more difficult, and there can definitely be some growing frustration in the in-between years when not as much work is being done. It also increases the city's debt ratio, which makes other future bond projects more difficult to secure. Although at this point we are okay in that ratio, but it's something to consider. And then our debt service payments, as we said, they do impact the mill levy. So you're paying for this mostly through property taxes. The other con of that is that when costs on those projects go up, the project scope has to go down because the bond is a set dollar amount. So if the cost goes up, the scope has to come down to match it We do less and less each time we do one of those bonds. Next slide. Possible model, I put proposed, but it's really not proposed. It's just a possible alternative for funding streets. Would be something like a sales tax. It's been discussed before. This is kind of the numbers around that. A half-cent sales tax in the city of Atchison would yield approximately $1.2 million in 2026. That would effectively double the street project budget without increasing property taxes. Sales tax moves with inflation. So as costs go up, the projects can scale with it to some degree. Another pro is that as those general obligation bonds from the past pay off, our debt service mill levy would go down. So the property tax impact would actually go down over time, even if we did the same amount of projects or even if we doubled and did more. Another pro is that sales taxes are paid by institutions and people at institutions that do not traditionally pay property taxes, which is a concern. Sales taxes are paid by visitors to the city who use city infrastructure but don't live here, so they don't contribute to that property tax revenue. Some cons of a sales tax model. Sales taxes are considered regressive. That means that the more you pay for something, the more tax you pay. So it kind of doubles on itself. Rather than a progressive tax, like an income tax or property tax, where the more you earn in an asset, the higher the tax you pay is. Sales taxes also generally disproportionately impact lower wage earners rather than higher wage earners. If you're paying all the same percent sales tax on something you buy and it's a requirement for life, then if you make less, you're paying percentage-wise more. Dollars the same, but percentage-wise more. A reference point, Atchison's current sales tax rate in most of the city is 8.5%. 6.5% of that goes to the state of Kansas. 1% goes to Atchison County. 1% goes to the city of Atchison. And the state average in Kansas is 8.6%, so we're right at just below average. The highest sales tax rates in the state of Kansas are 11.5%. Next slide. Okay, so this is the actual proposed budget then. Couple of notes on this. This is broken down by the funds within the budget. The top includes so there's the general fund that I talked about. There's the debt service fund. The library is not in there, because as I said, we don't really control that. We have water and wastewater. The rest are not taxable funds. They are funded in other ways. So we can go through this a little bit. One note to see here is the fund balances, as I stated before. Certain funds, we have accounting best practices that we follow, which ensure us to receive a good audit, which happens every year. We receive a good audit, we receive favorable financial considerations for future projects, bonds, things of that nature. So for example, the general fund, 10%, that's general accounting practice number for a general fund. To keep in balance, you make some money on your investment of that money while also having it in reserve in case there's something major that happens. Some of the other funds obviously are higher. Water, wastewater, and solid waste. Those are slightly higher in part because we're saving up for future projects like I talked about, which we'll see when we get to the CIP. The largest one there is the insurance reserve. One thing to note on that is a couple years ago, the city went to a self-funded insurance model, partially self-funded, which has saved us actually a lot of money in the few years since then. And that is one example there, that money is set aside to cover those increased insurance reserve costs over time to offset them so that they don't have to be paid for by taxes. That's savings on our current insurance. We get to keep that rather than paying it to the insurance company. Those motor fuel, special alcohol, special parks, those are all from the state, like we talked about. The land bank, We have a higher land bank balance than we've had in the past due to
We don't have
some
this page.
sales of properties, and we're looking to invest those in the community, find ways to continue that development. And then the capital improvement plans and reserve plans underneath that. Next slide. Here's a breakdown of the general fund into the departments. I also included at the front a handout of the pie chart that basically shows the same information here. So you can kind of break it down to police department is around 25% of the general fund. Fire department is 17%. Streets department is 10%. Public works and facilities is 9%. Parks and recreation, so the pool is included in there, is around 9%. Community development and economic development is 7%. Administration and other services is around 18%. And the contribution to the CIP and the ERP is around 5% in the proposed budget for 2026. Next slide. Okay, so this is the first page of the CIP. As we go through this, yes.
You might say what CIP means.
Sure. This is the capital improvement plan. So this is where we put in projects that we know we're going to need to do in the future, so we can start setting aside money to pay for those now, and we can look at our fund balance into the future to determine if we need to go for grants for those projects or if we can fund them. Speaking of the grants and the revenue, the top section there, those are the revenue lines. So as we go through some of the expense lines later on, understand that many of those are offset by revenue lines here at the top. Grants, tax funds that we receive, proceeds from other programs. Next slide. Next slide. Couple notes on this slide. Obviously, you can go through it in detail. The next park, so you'll see the LFM park upgrades on there. Again, offset by 50% with a revenue line up above, but that's the cost of the project for this year. The next park that's due for upgrades that we've set aside for projects is Reasoner, and the projects at Reasoner will come with over $150,000 in private funds that have been pledged to match the city money that goes into those projects. Another project on here is 2 years worth of upgrades to Warnock Lake Road. We know is getting in rough shape. So a couple notes on that page. Next slide. Couple notes for this one. You will see the 3-year mill and overlay general obligation bond on there. It is obviously 100% offset by the bond revenue at the top of the page. You also see 2 other major projects on this page, which is the North 5th Street Safe Routes to School improvements and the Unity Street corridor sidewalk improvements. Both of those also are offset 90% total between the two by grant from the state, which is up in the revenue line. So we'll be getting, for those 2 projects alone, around $2 million worth of sidewalk and lighting improvements to 5th and Unity Streets for around $200,000 of city investment. Next slide. Oh, another one on that page, sorry, if we could go back. Is this 2027 projected project for the collector wells for the city water supply. It's a very big one on there, and it's offset again by, hopefully we will receive a FEMA grant to help offset most of that cost. Okay, next slide. Couple notes on this slide are the water plant upgrades that we've scheduled for 2028, as well as some filters and kind of, we even put in here, scheduled maintenance we have next year that we need to improve the pipe gallery and the filter building and things of that nature. So again, we're just saving up over time You can see from the fund balance below, based on the projections we have, the CIP is fully funded. So all these projects could be funded based on what we've planned for today. Next slide. Now, we have a separate CIP for wastewater projects. This is because the city has a combined sewer system where most of the storm runoff goes into the same sewer pipes eventually as the sanitary sewer, and it all flows to the sewer treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant. Because of that, we have guidance from the EPA, an agreement with KDHE that we have to slowly separate those systems. We're required to do many of these projects through those agreements, and we have to set aside a certain amount of money every year to go towards those projects. So in order to keep track of that, we have a separate CIP for wastewater projects. A major note here. This year, we have in there, we recently approved the South Headworks project, which is required, again, by KDHE. We have to do this project. It came in over cost on our estimates. So the total for that project, instead of being what we hoped, which was around 1.5 million, came in at 2.3. So in order to make that work out in the long term, up above, you'll see the 15th Street sewer separation budget lines. In the previous CIP, in 2027 and 2028, we had around 1.6 million that we were budgeting for that project. The purpose of that was to match some congressionally directed spending money that we received through the Army Corps of Engineers to complete that project. We have around $5 million that we're going to receive from the Army Corps of Engineers to do CSO projects. We're putting it towards that 15th Street separation. So we discussed with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they said they would count our payment on the South Headworks project as the match for that money. So by paying for the South Headworks project up front, we're able to collect that entire $5 million from the Army Corps of Engineers and then not have to pay anything into that 15th Street sewer separation. So the project came in over budget, but overall, we're leveraging that to collect more funds from the feds to do a future project for $0 for the city. So, next slide. And then the only thing I'd say about this slide is that you'll note the projection for the wastewater CIP is that it goes negative. The reason for that is that the only reason that we can complete those large projects is if we secure grants, congressionally directed spending, state and federal funds to offset that. We can't necessarily predict what that's going to look like after 2027. We continue to go for those projects, and we have a pretty high success rate of landing those grants. But we can't project out that we'll actually get it. Although the project won't happen if we don't. So, we'll have to go to KDHE if we don't get that money and say, we need an extension on this, and we're currently negotiating the next amendment with the state. So hopefully we'll get a little more leeway of time between those required projects to account for something like that. So, next slide. Okay, so this is the equipment reserve plan. So the city, in the same way we set aside money for capital improvements, we also set aside money for our equipment purchases so that we can predict the next 5 years, figure out, do we need to be saving up for a new dump truck? Do we need to be saving up for a new plow, street sweeper, those kinds of things. A couple notes on this page. After working with staff, we did bump out the purchase of a couple vehicles that were set for 2026. We bumped them out into the future. I think one went to 27. I think they both went to 27. And that was because after talking with staff, we likely don't need to replace that vehicle at this time. We can save it for one more year. We're constantly evaluating the ERP in that way. Next slide. Similar on this page, another way we saved for 26 is the police department removed a vehicle purchase that was scheduled for 25, so we're saving that money this year. And then they're looking at, they currently have a certain replacement model for their vehicles to make sure they have, high-quality police vehicles, and they're looking at extending that out by an extra year, if it makes sense, based on the fact that vehicles are lasting longer now. So they're hopeful that they might be able to do that. You'll also see on here, we purchased a new fire truck last year, so the payments for that are ongoing into the future. Couple other notes here that the PPE purchases for the police department and the fire department here are often offset by grants that we apply for throughout the years that we receive from FEMA, Homeland Security, different departments. So Chief Weiser and Chief Wilson are both very active in getting those grants and lowering those costs.
Mark?
Yes.
Is that personal protective equipment?
Yes, sorry, personal protective equipment. So it's different per department. Obviously, the police department has their protective vests. Fire department has their oxygen tanks and fireproof equipment and everything. So, next slide. Okay. Note on this page, this year we were able to pay, because of these savings that we've made, we were able to pay cash for a new street sweeper that has been a really great addition to the fleet. And having a street sweeper helps us with that CSO because we're able to remove debris from the street before it can get sucked into the CSO, so we limit the amount of flow through our system that's monitored by KDHE. And then we paid off a couple trash truck loans early. We determined we had the fund balance to do so and that we would save money long term, so we made a payment on those as well, which you can see in the 2025 payments there. Okay, next slide. So this is just to show, it's a little hard to see up on the screen, sorry. This is the state form that we have to turn in based on the proposed budget as presented without any changes, but you are also obviously free to make any changes in this meeting. That shows the 46.358 mill levy proposed over the 44.865 revenue neutral rate. The highlighted number at the top is the proposed property tax revenue for 2026. The highlighted number at the bottom was the tax revenue for 2025. And the difference between those is the 2.5%.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Westhoff. At this time, do we have any commissioners that have any questions? Any commissioners that have any questions? Okay, if not, I will open it up to our guests. We have quite a number of you, and thank you for being here. In order for this to be as seamless as possible and orderly, if you are speaking, I request that you keep it to 3 minutes. We will be timing, so please keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you are commenting, please state your name and your address for the record. Again, please state your name and address for the record. And again, 3 minutes, since we have quite a few of you. And is there anyone at this time, and again, this public hearing is the intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate for 2026. And again, right now, it's 1.493 mils over revenue neutral. Again, 1.493 mils over revenue neutral. And again, as Mr. Westhoff has said, that would be a 2.5% tax increase, okay? All right, at this point, do we have anyone that would like to address us at this time regarding the intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate for 2026? Yes, sir. Please step to the podium and give us your name, please, and address, and 3 minutes.
My name is Bruce, a.k.a. Reggie Regenstein. I live at 133 Deer Run in Atchison County.
Okay.
My comments may be very short because my first question is, do I understand correctly that the only people that would be able to address the issue of the R&R increase is our state representative and our state senator, Dr. Rivas and Mr. Bowser. In other words, do you folks have any input?
Yes, we do. Yes.
You do?
Yes.
We do.
Yep.
Excellent.
We set the final mill levy here at the
Thanks.
local.
I had bad information. My wife and I both receive Social Security, but we are also both still working. And we need to in order to keep up with our bills. We do have a few rental properties, and it's my understanding that this increase will significantly affect what we will need to charge in order to try and break even. Of course, breaking even is not our goal, but I would just ask, no, and also I'm glad that you folks had this open forum. That's really cool. And I would ask that you folks consider, and I will in my discussions with Dr. Rivas, and then communicate to him when he has a chance to visit with Mr. Bowser. Do we know, are they in session now?
I don't believe so.
No.
They're not. Well, I'm disappointed that neither one felt or were compelled to come visit with us today. Actually, that's about it. I know I have time left, so you folks take all the time you want.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the commission at this time? Okay, I will close our hearing in 3, 2, 1. Hearing is closed. All right, at this time,
There's one option. You could also, I believe, hold the budget public hearing
would we like to do
next
that?
before setting that mill levy,
Okay.
if you want.
What is your
Yes,
pleasure? Would
yes,
you like to?
yes.
Okay, we will do that. So let's go on to our public hearing for budget for year 2026, excuse me. And we will have Mr. Westhoff again. Did you
It's
want to-
I would say it's kind of the same presentation. Obviously, the first part was about the potential tax increase. The second part is looking at all of those budget questions that we talked about, so.
Okay, so at this time, I will open our budget public hearing for budget for 2026. All right, the same process we will put in place again. If you are speaking, please come to the podium. Again, because there are a number of you, we would appreciate it if you keep it to 3 minutes. Okay, at this time. So at this time, first, let's offer commissioners, do you have anything that you would like to say or address? Okay.
Well, I mean, I think it's good that people know that we've had multiple meetings concerning these in a line-by-line item format. So there's been a lot of discussion internally here about the budget as well as the department heads, as was previously stated. But that doesn't mean that you don't have questions about a line item that you might want to voice concern about, or maybe he wants to spend more money, I don't know.
Probably not. Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
I don't know if this is really where I should be bringing it. My name's Kevin Eichelberger. I live at 1012 Price Boulevard. And my issue is kind of, how do I know? I pay my taxes every year. I don't have sidewalks. I don't have curbs. So where's that breakdown fall for me?
Sure.
You know, that I can see that, well, this guy gets it and he's charged more. The difference, I guess.
Sure.
So that's one of my questions.
I could comment one thing, is that in Kansas, the state law in Kansas is that sidewalks are the property owner's responsibility.
Yeah.
So that's where the city does have a cost share program, though, to try to help residents who want to put in a sidewalk. So we will do up to 50%, depending on the cost of the project, to try to help you put in a sidewalk in front of your house. And then obviously, like I said, we will do projects where we'll go in and upgrade sidewalks in high traffic areas as well. only though if we get that grant money to offset that cost, which we have. This year, we completed a project, West Santa Fe Street. Next year is that North 5th and Unity Streets will be getting an upgrade. And we continue to go for those projects every year to try to connect as much as we can of the city. In terms of the actual breakdown per home, it's really hard.
I understand.
It's because it's also police and fire, so we try not to gauge like a single resident's tax responsibility based on the services they used, because you have one house fire and all of a sudden that might go through the roof because the fire department responded to your address, right? So, but sidewalks specifically, state law are that it's the property owner's responsibility.
Okay.
Just one side comment. Since sitting on this commission, one of the things I was most shocked at is the price of sidewalks and streets.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking in terms of $1,000 increments, it's $100,000 increments.
Concrete's expensive.
Yeah, and it's going up.
The other thing, I don't know the answer to this question, I'll just throw it out there.
Yeah.
Is for you to visit the county appraiser's office
See if they can break it
and let
down.
them know that you do not have sidewalks or curbs.
Yeah.
Does that lower your home value?
That was
I can't
my
speak for-
comment,
That's a
that
good
surely if
point.
you didn't have a sidewalk, it would have some effect on your value and hopefully would impact your tax.
And it maybe do, I just I don't see it, I
That's
guess. I
true.
didn't know how you could see it, I guess.
And that'd be a question for the appraiser.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that calculates into their formulas. We take the number that we receive from the county appraiser to go into our calculations.
I have one other comment. We all know that there's properties exempt, and I feel like this is a big issue, and it's not just our issue, it's like probably a nationwide issue. And it's too bad that as state people ain't here, but I feel like there's an issue where sometime or another, we're gonna have to say, hey, maybe we need to have a use fee for these people that don't pay, because it's gonna get higher and higher, it's not gonna go down.
Sure.
And another question I have too is, these houses that are being sold, and I presume the college is building it, I don't know. Where's that money gonna fall? Is that property tax that's gonna be lost with them houses going there? Or
Sure.
will we get property tax?
Okay, I can answer that as well if you'd like.
Okay.
So on the tax exempt entities, obviously that's a federal question, right?
it's a big.
But I agree, it is a question here. We have a large amount of land in city limits and in the county overall owned by property tax exempt entities. As I mentioned in the presentation about like the one example of streets, those entities do bring people here.
Yeah.
Not all of them end up paying property taxes here, but they do use our services, which is why some places have gone to a sales tax model in order to capture some of that.
Yeah.
So, for an example, the two places in the state of Kansas that have the highest sales tax rate are parts of Leavenworth
Yeah.
and Junction City. The things those two places have in common is very large federal military installations where they bring in thousands and thousands of people to their city who live on base and don't pay any property taxes, but they're buying stuff throughout town, and so they've increased their sales tax to collect some of that revenue from them. I'm not saying we should go to 11.5%.
No.
at all, right? But that's one option for collecting some of that. As for the houses in the Raven Hills district, is what I'm guessing on the new First Street.
First Street.
Yeah. So that is what's called an RHID district. The way that those work is that a private developer fronts the cost for public infrastructure for that housing development. So they are fronting the cost to put in First Street, which doesn't exist, sewer lines, water lines into those homes. So the city doesn't have to pay for that up front, but it will be public infrastructure. So what they're allowed to do then is the increased taxes that happen in that district because of that development, they're allowed to capture that until their investment pays back. So they are capturing future sales tax or future property tax dollars from those homes until their investment pays back, and then that next year, that money will come into the city.
It will?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I was
And
wondering.
that's customary in most cities. is
Yes,
it not?
they're incredibly popular ways, because otherwise, it's over $1 million in infrastructure development going
Yeah.
into that area.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if somebody came to us and said, hey, we want to develop that area, it's got a right of way, put First Street in, and we'd go, we got to front that $1 million, right, to put in all that infrastructure. They're doing that on the front end and receiving the tax as reimbursement until they're made whole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you
Thank
also, would you also state who the builders are for that?
Yeah, they're not, it is a private,
Yeah, I know it wasn't the car.
they have investors of all kinds, so I don't know, you'd have to talk to them,
Yeah, I knew that.
but it is a private company. They are taxable. The first 5 that they built up by Mound Street, they're in that district, so they are collecting those sales tax, same thing there. They are rented to the college
Yeah.
currently, in a long-term lease, is my understanding, but they are privately owned.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was wondering.
Yep.
Thank-
All right, thank you, sir. Yes,
I
Commissioner
just have
Murphy.
one question that hasn't been brought to the value of a mill.
Yeah.
Because the value of a mill for the city is different than the value of a mill for the county and or the school district. And I just think we ought to know the
So
value of a mill.
for the city this year, 1 mill came out to slightly over $100,000 in revenue. The value of a mill is the same for each property paying the mill. Like I said, it's $1 for every $1,000 of assessed value. But because those values change, and because more taxpayers come online or leave, right, that calculation from the city's side changes. So last year, a mill was worth less to the city than it is this year, which is why that revenue neutral rate goes down.
And the reason we're actually lowering the mills from last year to
Right.
this year.
Correct.
This year to next year. And that's why I just, because it's
Yeah.
can be confusing because there's different mill values in the county. And I
Yes.
just think
Yeah.
we ought to put that right in front and center.
I don't know their value.
Yeah, we
No,
don't,
I
we
know
don't
the
know their
value.
value. Yeah,
I'm just saying what the value of a mill is for the city.
okay.
So,
All right.
and this, when the developer gets, they keep this tax money, but what about where they're in this 10-year no tax,
Right.
reduced tax? Do they still collect that same amount, or are they exempt there too?
So they're not part of that program because they're doing the RHID.
I see.
So
So
the
they-
city does have with the county right now and the school district, to spur development, we have the neighborhood revitalization program where anyone in the city who does a certain amount of improvements to their property gets a tax break on the improvements for a certain amount of time. If you're within a target zone, that's 95% of the improvement taxing. So if you paid, it's complicated to some degree, but if you build a new house, right, it's 95% basically of the house tax value for 10 years, and then it steps down. If you're outside of that target zone, it's 2 years, and then it steps down. That is available to everyone, including for renovations, with dollar amount limits. I will note that the county gave the city notice that they would like to withdraw from that program. We're going to attempt to have discussions with them because we believe it's been in place for 30 years, and we believe it's spurred a lot of development. And those, when that time frame ends, those tax dollars come onto the roll and reduce the tax burden across the rest of taxpayers. So
Okay, my question though is, like at that development up there, are they eligible for both programs? They are not. So
Correct.
if they
They're
take
just
this
doing the
other one,
RHID.
they can't participate in the 10-year one for the new house?
I do not believe so. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't understand that for sure myself, so.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Yes, sir, please come to the podium.
Cranston area. I had a couple questions on your operations budget. Wondering, what does the city do for animal control?
It is under the police department's budget.
It is. It's got its own line, though.
Correct.
I haven't seen any animal control in town.
So we have two full-time employees. We used to have one. We increased this year. We're seeing a lot of, as you probably have seen, a lot of animal pressure in the city. We have two full-time employees. They work 7 days a week, so they have their schedule spread out, so they are on duty 7 days a week. However, our shelter is only equipped for dogs. We can't take in cats, feral cats or loose cats. We can't take in any wild animals. It's too small for any of that. And it only has room for 15 dogs. So when we get to that level, we have created partnerships in the region. So we are able to give the dogs to other shelters around. But it is a tricky subject. We did increase that budget for next year by about $10,000 to try to come up with a program where we partner with spay and neuter clinics or things like that to try to help with the cat, the wild cat population in town, feral cat population, in a way that's humane. And obviously, we're not putting down cats. That's, but you basically the idea is you find a way to bring the cats in, vaccinate them, and spay or neuter them so that they don't increase the cat population in town, and then they go back out. And then over time, these programs have proven to work for reducing cat populations without having to build a new shelter that can keep the cats. So that's one way that we've increased that
We
budget.
had some information, what was it, Salina, wasn't it? That you told-
Augusta,
Where they brought in these cats and like 60% of them were pregnant.
We got a lot more
This
cats
cat
coming.
population can just go crazy in just a couple months.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're looking at that.
But we do, if you see dogs that are loose, please call our animal control department. They will come out and try to help with that.
Shelter is at the
At the city shop.
City shop.
Right, that explains 104. It just seems like 34,000 for contractual services seems kind of high.
That's for vet bills. When we are required by the state, anytime we take in an animal, you are required to do certain things for that animal before it can leave your custody. We have to get them vaccinated. We have to check if they're spayed and neutered. If they're a privately owned animal, we have some flexibility on the spayed and neuter thing. But if there's evidence that they're just a wild animal, we have to spay and neuter them before they can leave our custody, even to another shelter. So those are state requirements that we have to follow.
And $34,000 of it, huh?
It's around that area for a year. Yeah.
All right. The engineering, you said we don't have an engineer, but we still got 102,000 budgeted for it.
Yes, that's the
On top of the contractual obligations. On top of the contractual engineer,
What page
Do
you
you want
on?
to comment on that?
Well, we have an engineering
15.
technician that is still on
13.
staff.
Yeah, 15.
Okay, so that's part of.
So we do have one staff member in the engineering department. He's an engineering technician. He's not the full civil engineer for the city, but we do pay him still. And let me see, where you at, 15?
Yeah. Towards the bottom.
Bottom of-
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Pretty good paid engineer.
What's that?
Pretty well paid engineer.
Well, we can't hire one with what we've
We can't pay them enough to get one.
put out there, so.
Yeah, well, one guy gets 102.
Well, that's everything. That includes insurance. I didn't mention in the presentation, but our health insurance costs, we're budgeting 5% increase for next year. Liability costs, property insurance, we're looking at 10% increase for next year. We have to pay retirement, state mandated retirement funds that we have to set up for employees. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into a personnel budget besides just the salary they're paid.
What would you guess the percentage of benefits is per salary? 30%, 35%, somewhere in that window?
30 to 40.
So you can take 30 or 40% of that out from salary and put that into benefits, most of which are mandated, if not all.
On the solid waste, it still burns me that we get charged an extra $20 a month on solid waste because the county changed that policy.
Yep.
But we got down here, we got 168,000 for contracted services. What's that for?
Clinton, you have a quick
Clinton,
summary
would
of
you like-
How much was it?
168 contractual services and solid
Dues,
waste.
is that dues, fees, and subscriptions? So that's probably a big chunk of that's coming from the online payments that we've been talking about for a while.
Oh,
Is
okay.
that from the guy that applies it to the ground?
What?
That'd be solid waste?
No. That's this is trash pickup.
I might add that it burns me too that we pay that $19 every month, but the citizens in Atchison had a chance to vote on that and voted in that way. And I think they were sold a bill of goods by a handful of people and didn't get the information up front before they voted. So consequently, the citizens of Atchison are stuck with that 19 and a quarter, and hundreds of thousands of dollars is now going to the county that would have gone to the city. So before you vote, I'm not just speaking to you, but I'm speaking in the microphone.
Yes, to all of us.
Hey,
Before we
I
vote,
didn't vote
yeah.
in favor.
Well, let me say,
I knew
go
what
out and
was going
vote
on.
too.
Yeah, then please vote, yes, yeah.
Okay, and then we had a transfer out of the solid waste of 658,000. Where did that go?
It goes into the general fund to offset the costs that are not collected. So city, those other non-tax funds use taxable employee time as well, right? So like the trash service uses the administration office, HR, everything, city streets, the trash trucks damage the streets more, all of those things. And so the city's allowed to take some of the funds from those special non-taxable funds and offset the taxable funds so that those non-taxable funds aren't creating a tax burden on the city. So that's where those transfers come in.
Well, it just seems like you'd be able to knock that $20 a month down a little bit and not being able to, or just not take so much out of it, because that was supposed to be for solid waste removal. It wasn't.
And it does
supposed to
go towards
other
that.
places.
I mean, that's the point is that.
Because we had that before we had the extra $20 a month too.
Had what?
You had people calling the city office and other places. You had the other administrative costs before we had the extra $20 a month. So where did that come from? And why are we using
Taxes.
that to?
It came from
to do this?
taxes before.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
right, thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, does anyone else want to address us, have any comments, concerns? If not, we are going to close the hearing for our budget in 3, 2, 1. Hearing is closed. Okay, at this time, we are going to go back to our item with resolution number 3426, which is a resolution of the City of Atchison, Kansas to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate. I would entertain a motion to adopt resolution 3426, authorizing the City of Atchison to exceed the revenue neutral rate in 2026. Is there such a motion?
I make such a motion to
It-
adopt resolution number 3426, authorizing the city of Atchison to exceed the revenue neutral rate in 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 3426, authorizing the City of Atchison to exceed the revenue neutral rate in 2026. This will be a roll call vote. Tina, if you could please call the roll?
Mayor Young,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilcox. Commissioner Greenlee,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Commissioner Slattery.
Yes.
Thank
But
you.
we need to note that we don't necessarily have to do that. That's what we've talked about. So that's,
What do you mean?
we don't have to spend that whole.
Oh, we don't have
Yeah,
to spend it.
That's right. No,
We
don't have
always
to-
try to spend under
Yes,
the
Right.
budget.
yeah.
We always
yes.
try, and we've worked at it
That's
hard, I think, to
Right.
do that.
But we hope that we will not have to spend that much, but in the event that we do, we have set it so that we can. All right, next, I will entertain a motion to adopt the 2026 budget and the 2026 through 2030 capital improvement plan, equipment reserve plan, and wastewater/CSO capital improvement plan. Is there such a motion?
I'll move that we adopt the 2026 budget and the 2026/2030 capital improvement plan, equipment reserve plan, and wastewater CSO capital improvement plan.
Is there a second?
Second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the 2026 budget and the 2026 through 2030 capital improvement plan, equipment reserve plan, and wastewater/CSO capital improvement plan. This is a roll call vote. Tina, could you please?
Vice Mayor Wilcox?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenlee?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Commissioner Slattery?
Yes.
Mayor Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Next, we will have ordinance number 6724, appropriating the amounts to set up in each fund in the budget for the year 2026, providing for the payment of all claims and charges against the accounts provided for therein. Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 6724. Is there such a motion? I will move. Did you want?
Go ahead.
Okay, I will move. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 6724, appropriating funds for the city's services from January 1st, 2026 to December 31st, 2026. Is there any discussion? If not, this is a roll call vote. And Tina, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Greenlee?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Commissioner Slattery?
Yes.
Mayor Young?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilcox?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Thank you. At this time, that is all we have set forward for our special meeting today. I would just like to thank all of you for coming. I know that this has been a difficult time, but we appreciate your commitment. We appreciate all the city staff. We've done our due diligence with this budget. We've gone through every line. We have met. We appreciate your willingness to come and hear and be a part of this because the city is for all of our citizens and we absolutely want what's best for our citizens. So at this time, if there's nothing further, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make such a motion.
It's been moved. All right, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Did everybody get a copy of this budget? Anybody want one? I got it.
Yes.
No leaving.
Okay, I'm
I
leaving.
need you to sign there.
Right there? Okay.
And you to sign this.
Okay. Yeah.
You sign in there.
Together. Welcome. You need another one for the road?
Package, yeah.
You sign this for me?
Yes. I have to have them in school.
I see that.
Kids and
Yeah. Teacher, or principal or something all her life.
You can take a deep breath now. It's over.
Well, I'm just realizing.
You're expecting the worst.
Truck is full of fishing equipment.
Jesse.
I'm thankful. Well, I'm thankful that they-
Is that a
It's
pencil?
all open up.
No, everybody learns. Whatever the process is.
That whole revenue neutral rate is so confusing.
That's also on our
I've heard
website
it
too, by the
15
way.
times, I'm still like,
Right underneath
It
my.
is, what was sort of, what was the impetus for it? So, well, thank you, are you watching all that?
yeah, I'm going to Myrtle Beach.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Golfing?
Yes.
Having
Play some bad golf. Different states. I won't see you Monday, Jimmy.
You guys, what's up?
You want to impeach me or anything while I'm gone?